everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and today we're going to talk about romantic suspense series. You may or may not have noticed that I am currently in my romantic suspense phase. I don't see this phase ever going away because romantic suspense really incorporates a lot of things that I love. Growing up, I was not at all interested in light, fluffy sitcoms. If it didn't have explosions, if it didn't have action, I was not interested. To this day, that still stands. I don't want to sit down and watch some drama or something that does not involve a car chase, an explosion, aliens, you name it. Like, give me all of the action movies, I'm good. So honestly, it's not surprising that that translates into my reading taste. So I was trying to hunt down a definition of romantic suspense, and it kind of means different things to different people. Like they're all very similar, but some of them are really broad, some of them are quite specific and don't encompass enough. And I stumbled across a blog post by Tracy Cooper Posey, and I'm sort of paraphrasing what she had written for my definition, which is that romantic suspense is a novel with a major romance plot and HEA, with a major suspense, mystery, thriller, or action plot that results in narrative tension and doesn't fall into any other romance subgenre like historical or paranormal romance. Because you can still have the suspense elements in those stories, but on its own, it's kind of where I'm sitting with romantic suspense. And today I really wanted to share some of my favorites with you. This list is not exhaustive, and I do have other things that are on my radar that I want to pick up in the future, but for now these are the ones that I want to recommend. If your first thought was, Steph just needs another reason to recommend the Necessary Evil series by Onley James, you would be correct. This is more of a dark romantic suspense, I think, just because of the tone of the books. Basically, I can summarize this series as a billionaire adopts children with psychopathic tendencies and raises them to be vigilantes. These are all romances. They are very, very steamy, and there's also a surprising amount of humor woven into these. Like there are some very funny scenes, and the relationship between all of the characters, all of the boys who are raised to be brothers, is, you know, top notch. There are currently 6 books out. The 7th book is hopefully coming out this month. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Hoping that Maniac comes out this month. It also ties into Onley James's other series, which is also romantic suspense, the Elite Protection series. But I specifically wanted to mention these ones because these are the ones that I keep coming back to time and time again. Each book has its own sort of plot line, and the plot that sort of goes through is the relationship between all of the characters in here. And like any good series like this, just the way that the characters interact with one another and the way that we keep revisiting them in other characters' books just brings me so much joy. But if you do go into the series, be warned, there are a lot of content warnings in here. Like, you would need to check specifically for each individual book because every book deals with something different, but mostly violence, gore, killing, murder. There's a lot of trauma and abuse that has gone on with various characters in the book series, but highly, highly recommend the series if you haven't tried it. Another series that I have read stacks of books of, I don't own all of them, but I own a good portion of them, is the Professional series by Jessica Gaziella. This is totally Heather's fault that I'm this deep into the series. There are 10 books currently out. The first book is The Fixer, and this follows a kind of like a security company, but each member of the team has a very specific job, and they can be called in to fulfill specific roles as required. The leader of the group is the Fixer, and essentially it's his job to fix any problems that arise. Then you have things like the bodyguard, the middleman. If you saw the most recent live stream of A to Z recommendations for romance, I recommended The Executioner, which was he's basically sort of a friend of the main group, and he's called in literally when someone needs to be unalived. And Bellamy is quite literally the friend who kidnaps his friends, usually drugging them and knocking them out, and then takes them on expensive holidays because he thinks they need a break. He's that kind of friend, which sounds ridiculous, but is kind of works for his character. All of these books are fast paced. They do have that romantic suspense element. Quite often it's the hero trying to save the heroine, but some of the heroines are, you know, perfectly capable of protecting themselves and standing up for themselves and getting things done as well, which is nice. Just like with the Necessary Evil series, we constantly revisit previous characters from other books, and we also build on characters as well, so new characters are introduced in every book. Then there are Anna Hackett's romantic suspense books. So I've currently read all of the Norcross security books, which there are 9 books in total in that series. I have 3 of them. These are my 3 favorite ones. There is also Sentinel Security, which is a spin-off that takes place after the Norcross security series, and there's currently 4 books out in that. The most recent one was Steel, which I recommended in this week's Books Beside My Bed video. The Norcross security books are set on the West Coast. They follow a security company who take on various jobs to protect people around them, and oftentimes it's the hero protecting the heroine. However, in later books we get some very, very strong, very capable, very kick-ass heroines who also take on that heroic role, and I really like that. Particularly in the second half of the Norcross series. Like the first few books, the heroines are a bit damselly, but in later books, the heroines really step up and take on their own role, and it's great. All of them are really fun. There's a lot of tension, there's a lot of action, and that's what I love about them. And then the Sentinel security series is very similar, except this security team is based on the East Coast. There is a lot of crossover between the two series. We meet Sentinel Security in this series, and then we see Norcross in Sentinel Security quite often, particularly because the leader of Sentinel Security's sister has married someone from Norcross Security. So there is that familial tie as well. In all of them, the action and the mystery sort of thriller plot depends on who the characters are. They are extraordinarily fast-paced. They are very easy reads, and of the things I've read by Anna Hackett so far, they're my favorites. There is also the Criminal Intention series by Cole McCade. I only have book 6, and if you've read book 6, you'll know why I have book 6. I do plan on getting more books in the series. This is currently a 29-book serialized queer romantic suspense story between two police detectives who are initially forced to work together. They're both very much lone wolf type characters. They don't really want to work with a partner, but they both have a personal stake in the first case that they work on, and so they have to work with one another. This series is probably the queerest and most culturally diverse book series that I have ever read. It is so well done. The characters are just phenomenal. We have our main characters, Malcolm and Shong-jae, who are working together, and they are incredibly detailed and well fleshed out, but also the side characters are. And we're deeply invested in their plots. I've talked about it before. These books are written very much like a police procedural on TV. So they have the same beats and the same pacing, which makes it amazing and really fast to read. There are a lot of content and trigger warnings in each book, and each book has its own section at the start of the book, which details in depth what those content and trigger warnings are, so you can make your own judgment if you want to read the book. I loved this. I flew through the first 13 episodes or books in the series in December. If I wasn't in the middle of another reading challenge where I have to read my physical books, I would probably be diving into season 2. But as it is, that will be something that I do as soon as that reading challenge is finished, because I adore these books so much. And even though this series is, you know, at this point of my recommendation video, it's actually probably one of the first romantic suspense series that I read as a romance reader, and it's still one of my favorites to this day. And it is the Survival Instinct series by Adriana Anders, which began with Whiteout and had a sequel, Uncharted. There is also a prequel novella called Deep Blue, which was in the Turn the Tide anthology. This was the very first Adriana Anders book I ever read, and I had requested it completely randomly from NetGalley and just fell in love with it. And I believe it was the Fated Mates podcast who coined the term danger banging, which is what happens in here, because they're on the run from the bad guys across the Antarctic ice, and they stop to have their moment in a tent. I mean, what? They are absolutely fantastic reads. Adriana Anders is just amazing. And this one is set in Antarctica. This one is set in Alaska, and Deep Blue is set on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. Like, the settings for these are incredible. The isolation that the characters are facing while they're on the run from the bad guys. Talk about suspense. If you haven't read these, highly recommend. All right, and then the last series that I'm going to recommend is the Team Zulu series by Julie Weaver, which I think I stumbled across this on TikTok, so this might be one of my TikTok successes. So there are currently 2 full-length novels, The Hit and The Payback. And then there is a prequel novella, which is also like a Christmas novella, and it's called The Rescue. You've heard me talk about The Rescue. This is basically Derek Morgan and Penelope Garcia from Criminal Minds in book form, where he is a spy who is being monitored by the heroine, and she happens to notice that he's about to get assassinated. So she contacts him and helps him out in this situation. I should say all of the heroes in here are from a Black Ops team, Team Zulu, which is where the series gets its title from. In The Hit, you have a former military man turned hitman who takes on this job and is told to kill a mechanic, only he discovers that the mechanic is a woman and that she's essentially collateral damage. She's not actually the person who's done anything wrong, and he ends up kidnapping her and locking her away in his mountain cabin to keep her safe from the mafia. And in The Payback, you have a heroine who is hell-bent on taking revenge on said mafia because they killed her former fiance or her first love or something like that in the past, and she ends up needing the help of her next door neighbor, who happens to be a hacker with some very kick-ass skills. They were just a lot of fun, and I would be very interested in continuing this series because I enjoyed them immensely. All right, so those are some of the romantic suspense series that I have really enjoyed and continue to enjoy. I hope that you got some good recommendations from them. As I said, I'm really enjoying my romantic suspense phase. It will be continuing. I do have Tao Bauer's or one of Tal Bauer's romantic suspense series that I'm planning on reading as soon as I can, because I just love Tal Bauer and I know that I'm going to absolutely love and adore his series. In the comments, I would love to know if you have a favorite romantic suspense series or book. Feel free to share all of your recommendations down below. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a snake emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.